Okay. I apologize for the temperature in the building. The AC got turned off. Even though it's programmed to come on at a certain time, it won't come on if you turn it in the off position. So we apologize for that. We're going to start a series on Do You Know the Brethren? You've all got a book. First one's going to be over elders, even though we do not have elders at this time, or deacons, or a preacher at the moment. We're going to go through this because, as you can tell from the lesson, that there's things that are applicable to everyone. So, before we get started, Amos, would you lead us in a prayer?
Yes, sir. Pray, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, now as we take this time to study from your word, to learn more from it so that we may further grow in your word and become better servants of your word. Be with us now and help us all to strive to take this in and to apply it to our lives so that we may be stronger in you. Thank you for this beautiful weather you sent our way. Through your son's name we pray. Amen.
If you would, turn to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 12. First Thessalonians 5, verse 12. I'm reading from the King James Version. And we beseech you, brethren, to know them which labor among you and are over you in the Lord, and admonish you. Obviously, this is talking about getting to know the people which labor with you, which labor over you, and admonish you. Okay, so that's what the study is going to be over. We're going to be studying, getting to know those who are over us, or should be over us, in the case of elders. In 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 12, and turning to lesson number 1, it says, see, Robert and Rachel don't have a book, do they? They do have? Yes. Y'all have a book? Oh, you did get a book, okay. It's an obligation to every member of the Lord's church. And we beseech you to know them which labor among you and are over you in the Lord. Okay, first of all, the elders are supposed to be leaders. First of all, there should be loyal brethren. What are some other things that we know that elders need to be? Later on in the scriptures, we're going to find out more in Hebrews and 1 Thessalonians 5 and Timothy and Titus. Sober? I mean, what do you think of when you think of sober? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of sober? Someone who's not intoxicated. Well, a sober mind is someone who's clear thinking. That's what the Greek meaning is. Someone who has clear thoughts. And obviously, if you're intoxicated, your thoughts are not going to be clear. If you're under the influence of some drug, your thoughts are not going to be clear. Yeah, a lot of the drugs will mess with your brains. There's a lot of things that can harm you. Okay, but that's one thing. They need to be sober-minded. They need to be clear thinking. They need to be grounded in truth. You know, you don't want someone leading you astray. And we're admonished to, test every spirit. We're not to just, don't take for granted what I say is true. I mean, back it up with Scripture. If I don't back it up, you look and check. If you don't find it in Scripture, challenge me on it. Because it won't do me any good if I accidentally tell you something that's not true. And I understand that as a teacher, I'm going to be held under stricter judgment. So I'm not going to intentionally tell you something that's wrong. Okay, the elders, they also admonish you. What do you think of when you think of admonishing? Correct, yeah. That's certainly part of admonishing. Encourage, yes. I mean, the admonishing could be either a correction or it could be an encouragement. That could be either one of them. The way the admonishing goes, I can admonish you if you're starting to stray off the path. I can guide you back into the right path. I can admonish you to come back. That's not forcing you to come back. I can't force you to do anything. All I can do is admonish you and ask you and encourage you to stay the path. That's what we have to do. We have to encourage one another to stay the path.
We have to be receptive to that encouragement, not making it hard for the elders or hard for our brethren.
That's right.
Help us stay on the straight and narrow.
So, okay, we know that they're over you. We know that they're over you. So, what does to admonish means to warn? Okay, which is it can keep you from falling into the control of. In Acts 20:29 it says grievous wolves. And the grievous wolves who are coming in and not sparing the flock. The false teachers. People who are intentionally leading you astray to draw you away. Have you ever seen how a wolf pack operates? How do they work? They find a weak one. And they kind of get it away from the rest of the flock. They get it separated from the flock, and then it makes it easy prey. Because the flock's not there to help protect it. If they get it away from the rest of the herd, there's no protection for it, and it becomes easy prey. So we need to stay together. We need to have that unity of mind. We need to have the unity in the Word. We have to have the unity in the Spirit. In 1 Thessalonians 5:13, it says, "And esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake, and be at peace among yourselves." So to esteem someone, what do you think of to esteem? Encourage? There's a lot of times when elders take a lot of flack for decisions they make. The elders make the decisions based on God's word of which way the congregation goes. And they'll take a lot of heat from individual members who don't like that idea. That they think, well, I know they're in charge, but I think this is the way it should happen, because if they go this way, this is going to happen, and I don't think that'd be good for the congregation. So, what is something else that they do? They watch over the flock. They're the shepherd that keeps the flock together. There's a reason a shepherd keeps his flock together, because he doesn't want those wolves to come in and separate them, scatter them. Because if they're scattered, they become easy prey. One-on-one, they're all easy prey. But when they're together, it's harder to pick one out and drag it down. And if they're all together, the shepherd has a lot easier job to keep them protected. So they watch over your souls. They have to answer for the souls of the flock. So theirs is a very important job. The elder's job is very important. And they have a lot of responsibility. Like I said, they make the decisions of where the congregation is going to be going, what's going to happen, who's going to be the preacher, whether the preacher needs to be doing something different or he needs to preach a certain topic. The elders have that responsibility to make sure that the flock is fed and fed properly. So, it says, and be at peace among yourselves. Now, shouldn't we esteem someone who is looking out for us? Shouldn't we encourage them? Should we make it hard on them? No, we shouldn't. The elders can be relied on for guidance. First of all, they should be well-founded in Scriptures. Are they going to be perfect? No. They're human. Humans will make mistakes. But making a mistake and leading someone astray are two very different things. One's intentional and one's inadvertent. If you intentionally lead someone astray, your soul's at risk. If it's inadvertent, it's not. Yeah?
I guess that's also a responsibility why elders need to be well-rounded in regards to Scripture. So they're not leading Scripture. I guess I think about Hosea 4:6, and no one should be intentionally leading anybody astray. But if you don't know the Scriptures and then you try to lead somebody, then you lead them astray. It's your fault for not knowing.
Correct. Okay, and in the time of Jesus, the Christians called for the elders of the church. They were admonished to call the elders of the church when someone was sick, when someone was sad, when someone was hurting. They called for the elders of the church. What did they do? They prayed over them. They anointed them. They prayed for them. They laid their hands on them. Of course, we understand that in Jesus' time, or in the early church, they had spiritual gifts. They had gifts of healing. They had gifts of prophecy. Because they did not have the completed Word. They did not have the complete Word of God.
When you think about, for a righteous man avails much, these should be your righteous men in the church. And so they should be the ones you want to call because they're the leaders.
Yes.
They should be not that they're the elite, but in a sense they've proven through their character and their fruit that they're in a position that you should desire their prayers for you because it's going to avail much.
They've been tried by fire, so to speak.
Right. So I think of that. You're not going to be miraculously healed like they were then. But today so many people call for the preacher and expect the preacher to be there when we have the example here of
Yeah.
calling for the elders.
It's one of the, I think that's one of the problems that denominations have. They say, well, they have a pastor, and they have a group of men who make decisions on, day-to-day issues of what goes on, but the preacher is the leader. He's the go-to man. He's the one who ultimately decides what's best for the congregation, which is not right. It's not scriptural. The preacher is a servant. He's a spokesman for God. He's the mouthpiece, so to speak. He's there to encourage, to preach, to teach. And that should be his job. And when you get the preacher involved in starting to do other things that are not supposed to be his job, then you start having problems. Let's go to the qualifications of the elders. 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1 list the qualifications of elders. First Timothy 3 we'll start at verse 2. A bishop, which is also, and this is in the King James, a bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, apt to teach. Okay, let's go to Titus chapter 1. We're going to come back to 1 Timothy also. We'll go to Titus chapter 1. Start in verse 6. Yep. If any be blameless, the husband of one wife, having faithful children, not accused of riot or unruly. For a bishop must be blameless as a steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, and temperate, holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. Okay, though. Let's go to the first one, blameless. Back in 1 Timothy 3. He's blameless. Does that mean he's perfect? Now in Romans 3:23 it says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Or even elders have sinned. But blameless. We've had a discussion of this. We've had a lesson on this before. Turn to Luke 1, chapter 1, verse 6. This is talking about Zacharias and Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord. What's that word? Blameless. So, okay, blameless is not sinless. Blameless is not perfect. So what is blameless? Let's find out what that word is. What do you think of when you think of blameless?
That people can have nothing to say bad against you.
You can't say anything bad about the person?
This is the person that when they do something wrong, they find out about it, they're going to make it right.
Right.
They're going
If you do actually do something wrong, you try to make it right. You let it be known, and you make it right. It's striving to live right. I believe that word blameless is to, not able to hold against. You can't hold someone against someone. You can't hold this sin against them. There are many scriptures where it talks about us being blameless, because we can live our lives in such a way that Christ makes our life blameless. Sin, so long as we live our life according to God's Word, that sin is not held against us. We are blameless for that sin. Okay.
1 John 1:7. All of 1 John talks about.
Yeah, 1 John.
We say we have no sin, we're liars. So obviously, others will have sin. But if they're walking in the light, they're blameless. The blood of Christ will continually cleanse them from all unrighteousness. 1 John 1:7. Walk in the light as He is in the light. We have fellowship with one another in the blood of Jesus Christ. His Son cleanses us from all sin.
We understand that word blameless is not sinless. The main thing is it's not sinless, it's not perfection. But it's also not a flippant attitude toward Christianity. It's not treating Christianity as something you do on a weekend or a week, certain times of the day. Christianity is not something you do. Being a Christian is someone you are. It's a life-changing event, or it should be a life-changing event. If you became a Christian, your life should have changed. And I challenge you that if your life did not change, you're not a Christian. Because as we grow in Christ, as we put on Christ, we become a new creature. We no longer live that old life. Okay, let's go on. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time before the class is over. A husband of one wife. There's a lot of controversy over this. There's a lot of ways to look at this. The husband of one wife. I'm going to have input on you because I want to know how you understand this. Do you know the elders? Do you know any elders who have violated this command? Okay, the husband of one wife. Okay, obviously you have to be married. Number one, you have to be married. Elder has to be married. The husband of one wife. Okay. Does that mean one wife for life? Does it mean till death do you part? Which a marriage is till death do you part. But the scripture also says if the spouse dies, you're freed from that bond. Okay. But if you marry again, are you still a husband of one wife? Or is that the second wife? There are many who would say, no, that's the second wife. That's the way I would look at it. One wife. Is it one wife at a time? Well, I put this one away so now I can get married again. I mean, there's some that look at it and say, okay, well, he's divorced this wife, and now he's free to get married. He divorced this wife because she was unfaithful, and he got remarried. He's still a husband of one wife.
I've always taken a really conservative approach about that because, I don't know. I guess I look at it like to me, if in doubt, I just take the most conservative way. because of the scriptures. And I've heard different arguments, all the ones that you just put forward. And I've always looked at it, if some event caused, the first gospel to be no longer there after that, I guess my conservative mindset will look at it as a qualified anymore. That's how I look at it as a person. I guess that's very close.
Rule of thumb, but we've got to remember too that the scriptures are true and faithful in what they say. So that's mine. I've heard people say that this is brother was saying that once their first wife died, they were no longer a husband and wife, and that's correct. If they're not remarried, you can't have the entitlement of being a husband unless you're married. Is he a husband after she dies? Not anymore, because there's not a wife that will live up. And when she dies, she's passed, he remarries to someone who's scripturally able to be remarried to, because he's still the husband and wife.
There's a lot, this is a very thorny subject. Obviously, there's a lot of ideas going on. Yes, Adam.
Something that Jesus himself relied on, very typical verb in the Bible. I think it would say, if you could read it in a different light, to realize what it's looking for. Husband of one wife. It doesn't explicitly say husband of first wife or second wife, or it doesn't say husband of two wives, that would be in proper grammar. And it doesn't say husband of two wives, or it doesn't say husband of no wife. Like one person in their lifetime could be the owner of one car, and if one car gets totaled, then they're the owner of no car. And if they get a new car, then they're the owner of one car. I guess, the first or second or the sequential ordering could be worked into here first.
When I
It also means too, though, that wasn't there a lot of, today too, whatever, but there was a lot of men that were married to several wives.
Yes.
They had several wives, so could that also be talking, they had several at the same time, talking about that, saying,
Well,
you can't be subject to all these wives and still, because he wouldn't have time for anybody else with all his wives.
Well, in the Roman culture, it was common to be polygamous. There were a lot of other ungodly things that were going on too, but we're not going to go into that right now. But having more than one wife, it was more common in the wealthier families, because you had to be able to support the wife, even though it was not God's will anyway. And look at Solomon. He had 300 wives and 900 concubines. That was not God's plan. In the beginning, it was one man, one woman for life. The two shall become one flesh. That was God's plan in the beginning. That's still God's plan.
Yeah, but the Mormons don't like that idea.
There's still some people out there who like a polygamous relationship. That doesn't make it right. Even the societal norm is contrary to God's word, it's still wrong. Majority doesn't make it right. If that was right, the wide gate would be the gate to heaven, not the narrow. You can ask 99% of the people out there saying, "Are you a Christian?" Say, "Yeah, I'm a Christian." Now, I don't know about that anymore because there's some Muslims out there and there's some atheists and agnostics. But most of the people that you talk to say, "Yeah, I'm a Christian," and they won't have any earthly idea what that means. You believe in heaven? Yeah. You going to go to heaven? Yes. Everybody's going to heaven.
James, I guess when I think about this, I know a lot of congregations will take the conservative side and say, if they've been married before and whether she's passed or divorced for whatever reason, to keep it clean cut, yes or no, they just don't. And I think, that's the decision that the elders at the time have made, and that's what we should respect, because there's nothing simple in that. But I've always wondered, because I look at it as, if God has nullified the marriage, be it because of death or because of unfaithfulness, who are we to say that they're still bound to that person and therefore aren't eligible? And I always think about how, when they questioned Christ about the resurrection, and they talked about the woman that was married to all these men, and whose wife will she be? And that's in Mark 12. And in verse 24 he says that they were mistaken. Do you not know the scriptures nor the power of God? Verse 25, for when they rise from the dead, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They're like angels in heaven. Once we're gone, there is no marriage. And that's why the marriage is done. And therefore, you're not the husband of that wife. And I feel like, it does take some research, but we should know the people anyway in our congregation. We should know whether somebody's married for the right reason or the wrong, and be dealing with that anyway.
Right.
We should know, in that culture, and even in today's, we've got it, but they were going out to all the world setting up the rules for the church. And in every culture back then, you had all these idol worships in all these different kinds of religious, cultural beliefs that weren't godly, and they were having to be instructed in the ways of what marriage was and what God expects. And so it needed to be specified, like you say, because that's what God wants in somebody. That's the righteous. That's the righteousness. That's what's lawful in God's in the kingdom, is having one wife.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, I look at it that way. Of course, I wouldn't push it and say, somebody shouldn't, take the position of elder because, their first wife has died and they're remarried. But we should be looking into it anyway. We should know who these people are. We should know what their life is, and if they're being held against a standard, that standard is what God has set in place, not what we think is best or right or whatever, prudent. But that's just my 2 cents. Like I said, if somebody wanted it to be the other way, then
Okay.
I don't think it's profitable to argue.
There's a later on in the lesson, which we're obviously not going to get to tonight, that we're going to get some clarification on this. I believe we're going to get some clarification. I believe you'll understand more about it. Let's go on to number 3. One that rules his own house well. Further clarified by having his children with all gravity. That means having them well grounded in the Word. We all know what gravity is. We're all subject to gravity. It keeps us grounded. Gravity affects us all. Okay. The gravity we're talking about is not the physical gravity. It's the spiritual gravity, that sincerity in heart. It's that soberness. And rule his house, rule his children. That means take a stick and, come here, kid. right? That's the way you rule a house, right? Get the yardstick out. How do you rule your house? Love. You rule your house with love. That means, oh yeah, I love him, so I'm not going to do anything to him. No. Anyone who's a parent realizes that doesn't work. That doesn't work real quick. My brother and his wife, when they had their first child, they said, "Oh, we're not going to spank. We're just going to teach him how to be right and everything." Okay. Really? A few months later, he was acting up and they learned there was times when you need discipline. Without discipline, you're unruly. What is discipline? Discipline is training. Adam. Okay, and it brings up a good point. In college, what is a discipline in college?
Nothing. There is no discipline.
Mathematics is discipline. Science is a discipline. Sports is a discipline. Those are all disciplines. It's a training. It's something you learn. Now, someone who's very athletic, is sports easy on the body, Robert? Disciplines are not always easy. Discipline's not always pleasant.
Well, you know how some parents, they beat their children, like not spank them, but you know, like on the news, how they, well, that's not discipline according to.
Now, child abuse is not discipline, but there's a difference between child abuse and discipline.
Well, parents think that's discipline for.
You know, if you take a big stick and hit the kid across the head a bunch of times and put him in the hospital, that's not discipline, that's abuse. If you put someone in the hospital, that's abuse. That's not discipline. Training, on the other hand, the discipline that I'm talking about is training. Let me ask you this. Who has touched something hot, like a radiator? You learned real quick not to do it again, didn't you? Did you go back up to it and touch it again?
Not that same day.
I'm not talking about someone pouring something on you or someone else burning it. I'm talking about you touching something that's hot. Realizing it's a learning experience. If you get something unpleasant, if you try something and you have an unpleasant result from it, you realize, I'm probably doing it wrong. I may be doing it wrong. I don't really want to do that again. That's training.
I can't find the verse, but that discipline is unpleasant for a time, but it has a purpose.
Yes.
It's supposed to be unpleasant.
It talks about it in the Bible in Proverbs 19:18, chasing the sun while there's yet hope, and let not the soul perish not. It's all through the Bible that discipline is a form of love. We put parameters around our animals in the backyard because we don't want to get out and get hit by a car, and it's just, the world has put such a negative spin that anytime you say discipline, it's got an ugly connotation, and God in no way around the Bible, I don't think, intended that as positive.
If a father disciplines his son, he loves him. If you don't discipline, you're not doing your children favors. If you don't discipline yourself, you're not doing yourself any favors. If you're undisciplined, have you known anyone who's undisciplined? Have you known an adult who doesn't show discipline? They're not a pleasant person to be around, are they?
We can look at our society as well. The U.S. is getting to where it's afraid to discipline people for breaking the law, and therefore there's no consequences. So people don't fear the consequences because they know there's no discipline. On the other side of that, the negative, there's more of a benefit. It seems to breaking the law a lot of times.
There again, you learn from your mistakes, don't you? If there's no consequences, is it a mistake? Do you learn from it if you don't have any consequences?
I definitely learned from it.
Proverbs 13:4 says, "He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves his son disciplines him promptly." You want to be accused of being a child? That's what you want.
That old saying is now in effect today. He who spoils the rod spares the child. No, spares the rod, spoils the child.
Yeah.
Right.
If you look at Jesus, he had what? Disciples. It's the same root word as discipline. They were training. They were in training. They were disciples. They were being disciplined. They were learning what they needed to learn.
How about adult children? Adult children who no longer in the house. I guess they would not be included.
Can they still be disciplined?
You're an adult.
Adult children? Can adults still be disciplined?
If they're in my house, they're going to be.
I'm not going to your
Or
house.
they're not going to be there, that's right.
I think there's still consequences, which are a discipline. Like if you say you're not going to come to my house, if you're going to talk to me that way, that's a discipline. You've extracted a judgment or a consequence or a punishment based on their actions. But they, just like with anything, they have the right to choose. But are you referring to as the elders' qualification?
Elders' qualification to say adult child
Yeah.
would fall into the church. You still qualify.
Okay, we can go into that. Another issue, one that has believing children. Okay, does that mean only while they're living in their house?
You have to go over, at what point is when we studied this ourselves, congregation, if my two adult children are physically out of my house, and they have their own household, and they're making their own way, and for someone to say, let's just say, for instance, they were faithful in my house and my rule, and they were what they are now,
in verse 4, it says, having his children in submission. Well, your children are no longer under your submission when they have their own household. They didn't have their own household, and if it's a young lady who's married, then she's under submission to her husband, who's in under submission to God. But they're not going to be under your submission if they're out of your household. And that's
Okay.
Or
James, Proverbs 22:6 sums it all up. You know, as far as discipline and training, it says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he grows up, when he is old, he will not depart. So we have to correct our children and train them in the ways of the Lord, that they respect the house of the Lord, they respect the mother and father. We train them that way, and that training is to make corrections, whether it's spanking or whatever, you know. A lot of people have different means of doing it. But we train our child in
And in verse 15, it adds to that, foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will drive it far from him.
Okay. So we have one who rules his own house well, who has his children, having his children with all gravity, his children being in submission. Is that just while they're in their house? Just while they're living under their roof?
When it talks about how is he going to take care of the church of God, a lot of this is to prove that he can handle the responsibility of being a leader of the church. And I've wondered, and I don't know what y'all's input is, I like to know, but I've wondered, but if you have the adult child, would they not be qualified if they've withdrawn fellowship from that child for leaving the faith? But if they haven't, then they haven't proven that they can handle the church. Because if you're not even going to withdraw from your own children who've walked away from God, how are you going to handle walking away from a member and exacting that discipline, that church discipline, if you haven't even had the discipline of your own children? See, that's kind of what I look at is if they've withdrawn from the child, they're not condoning the action or supporting it in any way. The child, whatever. Whether I say child, but the adult.
Especially if it's, the brothers, that actually happens in congregation where the parents have lost fellowship and their innocence, because they don't know those steps scripturally. Last he ended up returning to the faith several times. Yes, I agree.
But if their children are not Christians at all,
Yeah.
like if they never became Christians, I feel like based on scripture they're not qualified at all. But to be, they could even lead their own children.
What time is class usually over? I think we've gone over.
7:45.
Yeah, it's time for us to wind this up. So we've got a lot of good discussion, a lot of things still to discuss. It's I thank you for your time. I'm getting a lot out of this, a lot of things to think about. We got everyone has a lot of things to think about. There's a lot of questions. We're going to be studying a lot, look into it more. I thank you for your time.